All right, your buddy Brad Pitt. So we've talked about him before. He's an ESFP audio, kind of a mopey guy, a really good guy. Now, he's gone through a lot of hard stuff like anybody else. An older guy, he's in his late 50s. Like everybody else, he struggled with some hard times. He struggled with some bad emotions and kind of got stuck down there for a while. Got stuck kind of at the bottom of the hero's journey or cycles of grief or whatever, where just kind of stuck with bad emotions. I'll drink them away and all that kind of stuff. It's an interesting story of like, you got to get down there and clean out the bad feelings, the trauma, the emotions, no matter what type you are. Even if you're a mopey ESFP with Savior FI, you'd think like, well, you have Savior FI. Wouldn't you want to clean that out first? Like, no, still going to take some work. So let's look at that. So she is the exact same 512 type as him. Just kind of let that settle in, right? We see with this type, males and females, a lot of times they're very good looking. Symmetrical faces is usually what we're talking about. Like the intuitives, they kind of will have wacky faces, Picasso faces, symmetries off or whatever. The lead SC tends to have a clustering of very symmetrical faces and therefore models, etc., as well as athletic. A couple of the top bodybuilder guys that I follow are both this exact type, Big Ramy and Nick Walker. Good genetics physically at times. Sorry about your luck. So now he's going to be double activated on his two saviors at the top, which are also double masculine. A lot of SCFI, so there's going to be a lot of like kind of in his own consume world, blast last, right? And when you really listen to him talk, you're like, oh yeah, he is very mopey and blast last and a feeler, right? Like that's what you're going to see, mopey, blast last, and a feeler, right? And then like Mr. Beast, his hardest function is going to be with the tribe. It is going to be reconciling, but the tribe really disrespected me, or they were mean to me, or they don't get me, or they don't understand me, or whatever. It's hard. They're hard to work with. They're too dumb, or whatever. So it's like the hardest function for him is going to be dealing with tribe interactions, relationships, etc. Not the most triggering. That's something to look for in video typing. It's hard to see in yourself. Like I've got a friend I'm talking to who's a mope. He's SITI, and it's like his biggest problems in life are the people. But really, when he zooms out, it's like actually it's the missing information at the bottom. But he's not even there yet. He's just like, yeah, but the people. But he's doing it in a double-decided way. I think that's really what I'm kind of locking onto, trying to figure out somebody's type. Is not necessarily, is people your hardest problem, right? Because you could be Brad Pitt, you could be a mope, IJ, and people is your hardest problem. People problems are what you're talking about the most, or stuck in the most, or going through the most. But I'm catching you because you're double-deciding. That's the thing to catch, right? You know what I'm saying? All right, let me play the first clip. It's Brad really kind of sharing his heart, where he's kind of on the other side processing how he was stuck in bad emotions for a long time.
I mean, we all carry, I think, great pains, great regrets. We've all experienced loss. We've all experienced great loneliness at times. And we're good at packing that away, not dealing with it. Some are really good at getting through it and coming out the other side in a more well-rounded, I think, more confident and loving human being. So we just wanted to, like, no holds barred. Let's just go. Let's get it out there.
Let's go. Let's get it out there. Let's blast last. So let me talk about that for a second. So when the blast lasts finally go, they go. I had Nick Walker, same type of, he's got a motivation for them. When I'm fucking going, I'm fucking going. And you hear the blast last where they're like, okay, I've been sitting here getting ready for a long time, and now that it's time to go, it's time to go. Something like with Vladimir Putin, right? He's blast last mope IJ. He's been holding back for decades. And now when it's time to go, that motherfucker just goes. And you're like, okay, stop the going, right? So you'll see that with the blast last, when it's time to go, they're fucking going, right? So Brad is talking about, all right, I've had all these negative emotions, all these bad emotions for years, for decades. And then there's some movie, it's like, you know what? All right, it's time to get these going. Let's get these going.
My individual experience is somewhat universal in the fact that our parents are our universe, our gods, our first imprint on how to behave, react, feel in the world. And with that, to different degrees, some of us more than others carry pain and confusion from that. I think it almost takes a lifetime to understand what was yours and what was theirs. As a child, I think most of us usually take fault or something of that nature on ourselves. So I think it was just a real investigation of parsing through that, and to really be able to understand yourself. As a dad, I mean, my dad always said he wanted to give me a better life than he had, coming from extreme poverty, and he did it. And it makes me think, as a dad, what do I have to offer that's better than I had to my kids?
What about women?
Yeah, Brad, you big jerk. What about women? So you can't say anything other than your dashboard, right? Like, and if I could ever communicate that, and it's hard to believe, it's still hard for me to believe. I'm talking to myself here. Nobody fucking cares. It's hard for me to believe that nobody ever says anything or is ever stuck. Like, Brad, it's impossible for Brad to be like, you know what? My hardest thing in life is I just can't see the sensory coming. That's my hardest thing in life. Brad can never, ever, ever say that. He cannot. He has no free will to say, you know what? I just can't see things coming in the sensory like dumbass Dave Powers. He's unable to say that. The only thing he can say at 58 years old is, I had a problem with the tribe, and I had a problem understanding the negative emotions with the tribe, the NI. And so with the understanding, that was something that I really was processing, like kind of watching Brad going, I relate to the FI, I relate to the loneliness, I relate to like falling into that dark negative, and then that dark negative energy will turn into aggression. You know, I'll see that with the masculine FIs. I know that's what I used to struggle with a lot when I was younger, you know. Let me jump over here to the stages of grief. That's something that really helps me kind of process this, because it's like, the worst thing ever is when you start to fall into your problems, it becomes very subjective, and now you're lost. Once it's a personal problem and it's subjective and the outside world doesn't know how bad you have it, you're fucking gone. And you'll stay down that hell for years and decades until you can start to come back up and make it a normal problem that everybody else is going through. You know what I'm saying? So whenever I'm stuck in life or emotions or business, I always go, okay, hey, where is this objective? Is there a slideshow on Bing Images about this? So with the stages of grief, the hero's journey, feeling emotionally stuck, there is a thing down at the bottom. This is kind of a better slide, where you're kind of stuck down in here, you know, bargaining and depression, right? It's also a lot of unconsciousness. It's a lot of not understanding, no matter what type you are. Oh, I've had a bunch of abuse. I've had my parents are bad, or I feel worthless, or I'm unmotivated, or I suck, or I don't know what to do in life. You know, all this negative energy that's building up over the years, and you're kind of stuck down. And there's the bargaining and the coping. Well, maybe if I just watch more Netflix, maybe if I go on TikTok, maybe if I hang out with my friends, maybe if I just ignore it, maybe if I drink. Oh no, now I did drink, and now I feel bad. You're just stuck in this bullshit, right? And most people, by the time you're, these days it seems like 25. By the time you're 25, you're down here, and you're just fucking stuck. And then, if you're lucky, you spend another 25 years, so you're fucking 50, still down here. And then finally, when you're 50, you're like, all right, this is getting silly. I've had enough of this. How the fuck do I gotta get out of here? Because nothing changes, other than it just gets worse and worse as you layer more bullshit onto your life. It's the fossil record of fucking bullshit stacking up, right? Let me jump down to this one here. So, I love that these are all Bing Images. I didn't make any of these. You know, I just stole these off the internet. I love that the stages of grief are what? They're the hero's journey, right? It's a little miniature internal emotional hero's journey. And now if you're opposite functions, you got to interpret that a little differently. You know, I'm FENE. I see it logically. Like, I know it's weird with your functions. It's still your sleep. Your inner world has got to make sense of the outer world of bullshit. Your inner world of positivity has got to overpower the outer world of negativity, right? And that's what Brad eventually had to work through. He's like, okay, wait, so my parents and what my dad went through. So Brad had to work through all this abstract emotion that everybody on the outside's like, yeah, sure, dude. Yeah, whatever. Right? Like, he had to do that for himself. Now, especially as a blast laster, he's going to have to talk that out. That's something I see with the AA, the 12 steps, all those guys. I love the universal stuff where they're like, fuck personality type. It doesn't matter. You have to talk it out. Your savior blast, fucking talk it out. Your blast last, talk it out even motherfucking more. Because there's like something about when you're talking it out, your brain like has these different functions, problems over here that aren't talking to each other. And when it comes out, you're like, oh, yeah. So look at this last clip of Brad where he's talking about, I'm done from just trying to run from it. There's nothing that happens other than you just get old and you just get fucking sick of it. And you decide at the bottom of your hell that's getting worser every year. You're finally like, all right, what the hell do I got to do to start cleaning this out? That's all on you.
Me, you know, what I realized was I was running to things to avoid tough feelings, painful feelings. I just didn't know how to deal with them, and looking for anything I found that I use for escape, to escape those kinds of I guess difficult feelings. I don't know how better to describe it. I mean, that can be anything. That can be drugs, booze, Netflix, you know, snacks, anything. I don't want to at this point to be running from anything. I want to sit in it. I want to feel it. I want to get through the rough night. And I found in doing so, you come out the other side with a more profound understanding of yourself, a greater gratefulness for those in your life, and the birds and the trees and everything else.
He just wants to get the hell out of there. He's like, please don't make me talk anymore.